Welcome. This is the Late Late Show with BT, where views with security and law are being provided to you, the public. Today is going to be a little different. I don't have any publishings that I'll be reading from, but we will be getting to the book that we mentioned is relative to our kidnapping. Holly Madison's Down the Rabbit Hole, Curious Adventures and Cautionary Tales of a Former Playboy Bunny. And um, I had the inspiration to do some bad boy. Um, and I got I know about two handfuls of bad boy artists, but it got narrowed down to Mary J. Blige. So, partly because, we adore, that our Mr. Puff put out, my Mr. Puff put out a Mary J. Blige, but also because her first album is relative to this kidnapping case too in Holly Madison. So it kind of goes together. Her first album was What's the 411? And that came out in 1992. So at that time, we had already been kidnapped. Um, and so that's what we're going to kind of do. We're just going to combine these two. And these are just two pieces, that's been put out there. It's kind of like you've been asleep and you wake up. But the good thing about it, the bad thing about it, you got all these different cases that has to be cleared. And upside that they're all connected, which it gives it a different dynamic to clearing. And there's years and years and years of advocacy for justice and for resolve, like Mary J. Blige, first album was the 411, and Holly Madison's book Down the Rabbit Hole. So that's going to be the show. Just a few updates. Um, as you know, we are currently a student at an HBCU in in Richmond. Um, However, uh, we might be going back to our home university. So, um, in the second semester, and unfortunately, this may be the last semester. Um, but will always be, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna write off these 2 semesters. Like it's gonna be combined and kept and put together, in a supportive way with, um, I haven't gotten word back from my home university, so that will be another update. But that's how it is right now. And of course, we are very diligent because we've decided on working with and contributing to the sweepstakes industry. So, but of course, that's not something you can control per se. So, that's another thing that I guess we can keep you update on it when our number comes up or our name is drawn, and you know I can be like, yay, then I'll update you on that. Um, Another upside that I posted on Facebook, we invested in the troll collectible President Trump, which I think is so cute. But it doesn't have on any shoes. But it does have 10 toes. But it doesn't have 10 fingers. So I, put that into what I call our little safe house. Um, But I think that is so adorable. And um, any other news and updates? And we will be attending um, basketball game. I think it's women's, which will be today. So we're gonna do this until it's time to go to that game. And it's Virginia State versus Virginia Union, which are the only two HBCUs in the state of Virginia, I think. Oh no, that's not right because there's Hampton, there's other ones. I'm sorry, but I think they're the only ones that use a V. They use Virginia, so that's probably why they sometimes it's advertised as rivals. Because it's Virginia Union, Virginia State. So I think that's going to be interesting and dynamic game today, just because it's like State got the Predator attempting to occupy where they are located, and Union got the Predator, you know, trespassing in a sense. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm anticipating them coming together and it being dynamic. Um, I mentioned before, like how things just connect when I did like a different language, people in Espanol, and how it connects. Like I don't know all the rules when it comes to basketball. I used to watch basketball, like when Michael Jordan was playing, Scottie Pippen, I was a Bulls, but it was more like I know what a free throw is, I know what a turnover is, um, but I couldn't necessarily catch a double dribble or anything like that, but I knew what a double dribble or whatever that is was, but not necessarily any play by play expertise or whatever. So, um, but the wonderful thing about this show and being with security and law is that when like we've mentioned about the homecoming game that we had last year with the Panthers and the Vikings, just getting like the security relevancy, it makes it a totally awesome game. And that's how it's going to be today. I could hardly wait. So I'm excited about that. And first, Martin Luther King's birthday celebration is coming up on Monday. Um, Surprisingly, um, well, I'm not going to say surprisingly, but VCU is hosting a couple events that we will be attending. So that might be interesting as well. Um, so I happened to catch this movie called, I viewed it last night, called Where in the World is Osama bin Laden? That's a documentary that was done by Morgan Spurlock. And, all this about the Predator and, posts that I put on our friend to the show, Latasha BT Rain's Facebook. I didn't know there was a $25 million reward. I don't even know if that is true or not, but I requested confirmation regarding that was true. A $25,000 reward for Osama bin Laden, whether dead or alive. And I'm like, oh my goodness, is that still available right now? Because that reward, if it is, I may be $25 million richer. So anyway, we're gonna start with Down the Rabbit Hole, which is R the book, and we stopped at chapter 5. Alice thought the whole thing very absurd, but they all looked so grave that she did not dare to laugh. Lewis Carroll, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. She wanted desperately to be a playmate, but half was done making girlfriends centerfolds. Only we didn't know that then. They knew as the smell made its way down to the butler's pantry. Someone might figure it out and bust him, she continued. She was beautiful, but there was something a little off about her. I'd only met Amanda a handful of times while she was shooting her pictorial, but the wholesome, dark haired beauty definitely left an impression. Don't you ever wonder for a girl to want to pose nude, there has to be something wrong with her, right? It seemed like a loaded question since both Vicky and I were eager to become playmates. Vicky paused, waiting for me to take the bait, and asked how they made that kind of money. She took a seat on top of what appeared to be a small amount of dirty clothes on a white couch and began casually petting the tiny dog that had crawled into her lap. Playmates must make some pretty good money to be able to afford Dior bikinis. Well, Vicky continued, snapping me back to the present, she has a lot of sugar daddies. Her face was starting to morph from terribly offended to wildly angry. I could feel the blood pumping in my cheeks, certain I was bright red. Oh my God, I thought, I can't wait to tell Bridget about this. I came to believe that Vicky was working for Hollywood Madam Michelle Braun, the owner and operator of the high-end escort service Nietzsche's Girls. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Nietzsche was the premier madam who prided herself on a reputation of having the most exclusive girls in the business, many of which were playmates, and even some of Health's own girlfriends. One of the girls said Vicky had confided in her that she got a cut or fee for the girl she was able to introduce to Braun. In 2009, Braun was indicted after pleading guilty to transporting women across state lines for the purpose of prostitution and money laundering, and was sentenced to 3 years probation and 6 months of house arrest. They became addicted to LA's opulent lifestyle, expensive cars, designer handbags, luxury apartments, and sadly, for many of these women, the majority of their income went to supporting some pretty nasty drug habits. In her day, high-end call girls were being shipped off to Brunei to meet their clients. Braun said during a 2008 Rolling Stone interview that her big break in the escort business was landing Turkish billionaire Hakan Uzan as a Nietzsche's Girls client. The article named Playmate Tashara Quasino and Playboy cover girl Ashley Massaro as employees, as well as Tina. Hakan would send me an instant message at 3 a.m., and I would have to get 4 playmates ready right away, Braun told the magazine. But Half was determined to plug this leak, not necessarily for the benefit of the girls, I believe, but to maintain Playboy's image. Playboy was supposed to be classy, after all. Instinctively, I grabbed a stack of contact sheets off Mary's desk, thinking it had to be negatives from the newest Playmate test shoot, something I always poured over. Hef was determined to put an end to the Playboy prostitution ring, still unaware he had an enemy under his own roof, and put new restrictions in place to better ensure that his centerfolds weren't participating in Nietzsche's girls. Holly, I need your help, the breakfast caller squeaked through the splotchy connection. Amanda was in close contention with a handful of other girls, and I was not so quietly rooting for the frustrated beauty. Ever listen to me? I thought. But if this is really important to you, you should try to get your passport. I later discovered that in order to stop the prostitution problem, health mandated that any playmate found to be working as a call girl would be banned from working any promotional appearances for the magazine. At the end of the day, Playboy playmates turned prostitutes still isn't a good headline for the brand. She would, of course, deny any involvement. Half might choose to believe her, reprimand me for spreading catty gossip, and then I would be subjected to Vicky's vengeful wrath. Vicky would do all the heavy lifting for a cut of the profits, naturally, and all the girls had to do was give the names to the office administrators before the party. A few days before the annual Playboy Halloween bash, I had come down with a nasty case of the flu. Needless to say, they were totally busted, and even Vicky couldn't deny it. Of course, the evil witch was convinced that somehow I had been the one to snitch, even though I hadn't even known about the scheme at the time. At that point, leaving the other girls in her wake, she charged up to my side of the bed, her nostrils flaring like an enraged bull and her fists clenched at her side. I've seen some of the girlfriends resort to throwing punches over things as trivial as someone cutting the bathroom line at a nightclub, but I've never seen Vicky so incensed before. It felt like hours before Hal finally returned to the bedroom. They're actually going to be gone. But when he got to the part where they had gone to get their bunny brands as a sign of loyalty and how very sorry they all seemed, his eyes started to gleam with pride as a small smile spread across his face. Half asked, truly befuddled. Half and I usually watch movies alone most weeknights, which for me was a much needed reprieve from having to be around all the other girls. Even though we never talked about it, Half knew the girls were terrible to me. I shifted my gaze downward and refused to react to his tantrum, which luckily proved to be short lived. This was code, of course, for her ability to recruit other girls into the bedroom. I would leave the mansion for good, my bunny tail tucked between my legs, and Vicky would win. Just as I was about to pull myself from the haze I've been living under, Half broke the silence. I think I'll tell her it's time for her to leave after the Halloween party, he said matter of factly as he picked up the bedside telephone to order his dinner. Vicky was going to be kicked out. I knew the battle was over, but I was careful not to rock the boat. Losing sight of what it was I had even wanted before moving in, I became obsessed with being the last one standing in this perverted elimination game. I was determined to win. In their place was an entirely new cast of characters. Bridget, my solo friend. Daphne, a pretty cunning girl who quickly became one of Hef's favorites. Diana, Hef adored her because she had the helpless damsel in distress act down pat. Elizabeth, one of Daphne's sidekicks, who was low on the totem pole because Hef found her shrill and demanding. Whitney, at 30, the oldest girlfriend and Hef's least favorite because he considered her pushy. And finally, Amber, a seemingly sweet as sugar, quiet girl who defected from side to side when it came to the battle between the mean girls and me. The Wednesday and Friday nightclub outings, which had seemed so exciting to me when I first joined the group, became dreadfully monotonous. Not just to me, but to all of the girls. Since there were no celebrities to be seen at Barfly, the girls hated it and referred to it as Barfly behind Hal's back. He usually insisted on staying out until 1 a.m., but on the rare occasion, since there were no celebrities to be seen in Barfly, the girls hated it and referred to it as Barfly behind Hal's back. Diane and Elizabeth would beg Hal to bring us to cooler night spots instead of Barfly, but he was loath to change his routine. He had been going out so often, he was no longer a novelty, and he was too high maintenance, always bringing a huge group and always demanding the best booth in the house for the A-list clubs to be bothered with him anymore. The dreaded bedroom routine still went on after each club night, but the parade of new girls joining the antics had subsided. In fact, anytime a woman the girls found to be a potential threat got too close to help, one of them, I was never sure who, would give her a friendly warning that herpes was going around the mansion, and she would instantly back off. Looking for something to occupy our time, Bridget and I became official mansion tour guides. While most people use the term Playboy Bunny to describe anyone associated with the magazine or Hef, the term actually refers to the waitresses who wore the bunny costumes at the Playboy clubs, which existed in the middle part of the last century. I made friends with a large spider monkey named Coco, whom we eventually trained to be able to walk around on a leash. In another attempt to occupy my time and my brain, I began taking French lessons, acting classes, and real estate investment courses at UCLA. She had already received her master's degree, but felt the weight of mansion life affecting her head too, and began taking classes as well. To him, a woman's beauty is her most powerful asset, unless, of course, she happens to be famous. Hef never even bothered to introduce us to his guests, as if we were some lifeless mannequins unworthy of such an honor. We have pink Pussies! A loud baby voice, blonde shrieked, charging past security into our roped off table at one of our regular night spots. I took it upon myself to always take note when a celebrity would make the effort to introduce him or herself to us, or even simply blanket the group the simple hi girls. But a few weeks later, Paris, in the lowest low-rise jeans, the skimpiest blue top, and the darkest spray tan I had ever seen, appeared tableside during one of our club nights at the Standard Lounge to speak with us. She appeared to be explaining something to him. Whether that was true or if it was just an excuse she made up in order to back out of the discussions, I don't know. One Night in Paris quickly became one of the best selling porn videos of all time. During a shoot for MTV's Doggy Fizzle Televizzle, Bridget and I gave Snoop Dogg the official tour. When MTV returned to shoot an episode of Viva La Bam on the property, I was asked to be the bunny who interacted with the cast. Rarely would a request come through to shoot all the girlfriends together, but before the holidays one year, a Los Angeles news station asked to film a segment with all the girls in our pajamas in front of the mansion's Christmas tree. I also found his baggy, faded flannel pajamas terribly unflattering. Those TV spots were fun, but I was really excited when Fox started shooting a reality television show called Who Wants to Be a Playboy Centerfold? The show was intended to be a series, but ended up getting cut down to just a one time special. That sounds like a really cute reality show. So, like, I'm so pro the girls next door, but from the perspective where it's kitty, bunny, kitty, bunny, catty, yeah, kitty bunny catty collaboration. So like, if that happens, I definitely would be for doing a Who Wants to Be a Playboy centerfold. Anyway, back to Down the Rabbit Hole live. The show was shot mainly in a rent-style home across the street from the mansion that Health had recently purchased, which we would later tape to calling the Money House. Finally, a winner would be chosen to be Miss July of that year. She's the bitch, a female producer exclaimed after Huff pointed out who he would like to eliminate next. I was familiar with America's Next Top Model, the show that this Playmate competition show appeared to be based on, and never would have guessed that contestants were kept on strictly to stir the pot. By the way, I always found the winner to be a nice person. I suppose she was a little more honest and blunt than the rest of the contestants, hence the bitch label that people like to throw onto assertive people. During the shoot, Hef sat in his own wooden throne-like chair, bobbing along to the beat and wearing black sunglasses, with Nelly and Justin Timberlake on either side of him while we danced around them in skimpy outfits. When I finally managed to get up to the master bedroom to change out of the red skirt and lace cropped halter I had worn for the video, Half had beaten me there and was already standing in front of the bathroom seat. My eyes started filling with tears, as they did almost daily back then. What if the producers decided not to be kind that day? I always remember how stunning the Bentley twins looked in their glamorous Warachi gowns, and seeing as though this was an extra special event, I figured I could splurge. You know, you will look back on this time as the best time of your life, Mary had said to me after one of my event sessions. I trusted Mary, and I always showed her how I felt. But if this is the best time of my life, shoot me now, I thought. Foolishly, I had long believed that becoming a Playboy centerfold was the fast track to fame and fortune. More than ever, I had begun to accept that I would never achieve anything greater than my role as Half's main girlfriend. Playmate and TV personality Jenny McCarthy hosted the event. Her beauty is matched by her wit. She ended up being the best part of the show, by far, which included musical numbers and stand up acts. I guess he figured the regular invites back to the mansion would keep anyone from speaking negatively about him. Sure, Hef was much older than she was when they dated, old enough to be her father, though not her grandfather. Despite presenting Hef with a birthday cake totally nude while filming the next episode of Girls Next Door, Pam Anderson always struck me as an incredibly guarded and quite shy. I met the touring blonde only briefly, but she exuded the charm and etiquette of a real Southern belle. Like most former playmates, they were cordial with Hef, but I don't believe they knew him very well. I was beyond thrilled to meet 1950s pinup Betty Page, a living legend. Her name and likeness had become popular again in the 90s, and it was Hef and his friend Mark Rosler who found Betty and reconnected her with the business end of her pinup past. Okay, I thought, fighting back the tears. I'd always felt that Hef didn't think I was very pretty, and that he thought I was lucky to be living at the mansion. If I was going to take the leap and pose nude for the world to see, I wanted to become Playmate of the Month. But then I thought maybe posing for a Cybergirl shoot would show Hef that he was wrong about me. Okay, open your knees a little wider, directed the photographer as I sat facing the camera on a red sofa without a stitch of clothing on my body. The shoot took place at the Bunny House, the brightly colored mid-century home right across the street from the mansion. As Hal's main girlfriend, they wanted me in a short satin kimono robe, touting a plastic crop pipe. Say that 3 times fast, to pay homage to my boyfriend. The half tribute had been done once before by his second wife, Kimberly, and would be done again by his third wife, Crystal. Since I wasn't getting the opportunity to shoot with the best of the best, I was terrified that my photos weren't going to be the home run I had hoped they would be. I didn't want to seem ungrateful or bratty. As I predicted, they were far more explicit than I wanted them to be. It was a perpetual contest to see who could be the skinniest, tannest, bustiest, most baby faced, with the longest, whitest hair. The editor took them down immediately, but that doesn't mean much. They felt my role as main girlfriend was to be a sort of representative for the other girls and make sure that we continue to enjoy all the perks of living at the mansion. Under their breath, when they weren't making comments about my appearance, Daphne loved to make fun of my thin lips since I was one of the few who didn't have my pout inflated with fillers. I'd overhear them make comments alluding to the fact that I didn't run things as well as Tina, since Hef had so noticeably tightened his purse strings with the girlfriends in the last few years. The Bentley twins were showered in lavish gifts, Rolex watches, fur coats, matching BMWs, designer gowns, and even furniture for their off-property apartments, which were also paid for by half. But it was nothing on the scale of what the twins had managed to bank. I don't care about money. I just want to be wonderful, was a Marilyn Monroe quote I lived by. Instead, they ran out to Bergdorf's and purchased three incredibly expensive designer handbags. While Bridget, Amber, and I were focused on the experiences and actually liked some things about having his lifestyle, the mean girls seemed to be focused only on the money. Every year since I had moved into the mansion, I made a trip to Disneyland for my birthday. I don't believe that he really wanted harmony, not for a single minute. At the time, though, we were all naive enough to believe what he told us. Not only did it make them look like pouty little children, which have hated, but it also allowed me to have the most enjoyable birthday celebration I had in a while. Over the previous year or so, since his girlfriends hadn't been gracing the pages of the magazine as often as they once did, the number of girls clamoring to be included in the party posse had understandably subsided. At the time, Whitney was good enough to join him in the bedroom, but he wasn't too keen on asking her to move in. Tina had clearly been recruited to go to bat for her. Most of that went towards the private planes he chartered, sometimes on the company tab, and the trips he took his girlfriends on, including a lavish European tour before I had arrived. For months, Hef continued to reject Whitney's pleas to become a girlfriend, but eventually her persistence paid off, and one day she moved into the mansion. While no one really thought twice about it, she was apparently mortified by the decision and desperately searched for a reason to excuse her behavior. Bridget and I were so square we wouldn't even have known how to get drugs, let alone be tricky enough to slip them into someone's drink unnoticed, in front of a whole table full of enemies, no less. But I just had to be fair and ask. But I wouldn't be the one who took them out. Someone a little bit more Hef's type than I was. Someone younger, blonder, and much, much ditzier. The A category was the most elite, meaning those girls were allowed to be invited back for all events, or perhaps even a playmate test, or an evening out with Hef. The C category was the label bestowed on girls that were to be invited back only if they were absolutely desperate for more warm bodies. Inside the box were photos of playmates and potential playmates attached to a note card with the girl's information printed on it. This was a distinctive pal because these were the girls Hef was considering inviting out for a night. Occasionally, there would be a pal in front of the box with photos of girls that had attended a mansion party or girls that had submitted photos to the magazine and weren't being considered as playmates, but were still cute enough for Hef to consider taking out. This time, however, I was determined to finally use the box to my advantage. Bridget and I were beyond tired of the mean girls, but we knew Hal wouldn't be content with just the two of us. They each began focusing on their lives outside the gates, aka other boyfriends in some cases. So it was only a matter of time before they moved out or have asked them to leave. A few days before Hal's 78th birthday party, I noticed three pictures stacked in front of the wooden box in Hal's closet. Apparently, the girls were auditioning to be painted ladies at the party, and the body paint artist had submitted the images to the mansion for approval. More than hot enough to be Hef's girlfriend, but a refreshing change from the bleach blonde fembot look. Unbeknownst to us at the time, Hef had also made a pilgrimage down to the gym to check out the prospects and made a beeline toward Kendra Wilkinson, the most platinum and plastic of the bunch. Couple that expectation with the fact that we girls had a lot of time on our hands and you get marathon beauty days. A girl could rarely be too skinny at the mansion. After all, there are expectations that we become the playboy fantasy everyone expected us to be. And in order to be that woman, it was essential that we looked the part. Plagued by self doubt, I was constantly troubled by an imaginary belly and would often add a single garter to my costumes and had to tie down the back of my left leg. On the night of Hal's 78th birthday party, we made our entrance into the Great Hall around 9 o'clock. As was customary, Mark Frazier, the body painter, brought the painted ladies over for a photo with us as well. Tiffany was the only one who wasn't willing to go all the way. Good for her. So even though I really liked her, I knew she wasn't going to be invited back. In Kendra's book, Sliding into Home, she describes how asking her to be a girlfriend and handed her a house key before he invited her up to the bedroom. He never asked anyone to become a girlfriend before they joined him in bed. In the early days, Kendra wasn't the bubbly, bouncing loudmouth you may remember from the girls next door. Kendra was still living in San Diego at the time, so Half invited her to stay through a whole weekend and join us for the big Easter celebration that Sunday. When we got back to the mansion, I went out to the room in the guest house where Kendra was staying, holding the new blue dress. I told her it was hers to wear if she wanted, and that Bridget was wearing a pink one, and I had a pale orange version. Oh my God, girl, she said. I could see the relief on her face as a big toothy grin emerged. I have to bring my dolls, she stated. I had felt so lucky just to scrape by when I moved into the mansion, and here was a rookie who had just gone all the way with an old dude, and her only concern was how big her room was going to be. Kendra was a stripper, but had told Hef she was a college student because the body painter gave her the heads up that Hef didn't like strippers and preferred college girls. About a month after Hef's birthday, the mean girls were finally given the boot, and Kendra was officially asked to be a girlfriend. She also snagged the room she wanted, bedroom two. You know, he began, taking a swig from his bottle of Pepsi. I have decided I'm going to do a pictorial on the painted ladies, featuring you and Tiffany. He knows how badly you and I want to be in the magazine, and he just had to make that awkward announcement in front of us. Like all of us, she had a rough days, especially in the beginning, and we tried to coach her through. But that day, she seemed really depressed. When evening finally rolled around, Kendra seemed elated to be outside the mansion gates without house parent like supervision. I could sense Kendra's frustration getting the best of her, but before I could intervene, she groaned and snapped the menu off the table, pointing firmly to the drink. Yeah, that's what I said, Kendra jeered, looking back at the table. And shortly after, Kendra's began to take off. One day, when I was out shopping, I fell in love with these adorable skirts at Beeb that I knew Bridget and I would both love. I wanted to make sure that Kendra didn't feel left out, so I picked up the baby blue version for her. When I got back to the mansion, I found Kendra in her room and handed her the bag. I thought we could wear them out to the club tonight if you want to, I said, helping myself to a seat at the edge of the bed. Kendra lazily pulled the skirt out of the bag and ripped the tissue off from around it. She held it up for a moment before shoving it back into the bag. Yeah, I don't really like it, she said, wrinkling her nose and handing it back to me. Sure, I didn't want to be a clone either, but couldn't she just have said thanks and tucked it into her closet? I won't wear it, she snapped back, dropping the bag to the floor and turning her attention back to the TV that so frequently occupied her. You don't have to, I said finally and walked out her door, leaving the bag on the ground. I went out of my way to do something nice for her, and it came back to bite me in the ass. It's probably still sitting in bedroom two's closet. This was going to be bad. It was such a memorable moment that when Kendra appeared in the main entryway with her lips painted bright red, my entire body tensed. It had been 2 years since Hal's reprimand, but the humiliation still burned inside me. I could tell that Hal was already irritated. She kept us waiting this long, and now seeing the red lips, he was not going to be happy. I looked over to Bridget, who had the same surprised look plastered on her face that I was sure I had on mine. What about Bridget? Tina. I whispered to Bridget when we finally piled into the limo. Over such a minor thing, I was belittled. It made to feel like trash. That's one of the things about Hal. When it came to humiliating his girlfriends, the larger the audience, the better. Quickly, I shut off my pride and put on the biggest smile I could muster. I can't let him believe he succeeded. He wouldn't use Kendra as a pawn to get the best of me. Despite my attempts to befriend Kendra, she continued to push me away. She had been at the venture for a few months, and Hef hadn't asked her to be a playmate yet. I'm locked down, she would frequently say, referring to her life behind the gates. There was even a hierarchy among Hef's friends when it came to seats at the dinner table. She was just another blonde girlfriend, and life at the mansion wasn't all she imagined it to be. In the beginning, Kendra was very quiet. The raucous, deep-throated cackle that became her trademark on G&D was something she affected in order to stand out. If no one is paying attention to her, she just screams out of the blue. She claimed to be so terrified of flying that she would put on a massive show in front of Hef during takeoff that resembled a long, prolonged, frightened orgasm. Always trying my best to be as attentive as possible, I remained seated next to Hef the whole night, drinking and watching the plot. Immediately, Kendra hoisted herself to the top of the banquet, surrounded by the playmate posse, all of whom were her BFFs on this particular evening. Kendra put on a show dancing as provocatively and wildly as she could until she was certain every set of eyes in the nightclub were focused squarely on her. Kendra took a brief moment to take in the situation before turning her attention back to the other playmates and letting out a long, loud laugh, not even taking a moment to apologize. I just wanted this night to be over so I could forget about this latest humiliation, just as I had tried to forget all the others I had experienced since joining the mansion fold. It hurt enough to have to be constantly humiliated by Hef, but now I had to take it from a 19-year-old bimbo who I had been nothing but welcoming to. I took my seat in the back of the limo, and much to my surprise, Hef finally opened his mouth. You guys are my family, she wailed, reaching for the bottle of vodka from the limo bar. In between swigs, she cried and blurted out some mumbo jumbo through sobs that no one really understood. Half Bridget and I fell silent before telling her that we would be there for her too. there wouldn't be time to focus on such things moving forward. I can't believe this. I'm reading down the rabbit hole and I have to pee. So just a few seconds. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, so I'm back. So I'm back with Holly Madison. Don't worry, we're gonna get to married. Holly Madison's Down the Rabbit Hole, Curious Adventures and Cautionary Tales for Former Playboy Bunny. And don't get, what's that, distracted. We're still talking about kidnapping. No one even bothered to ask our opinions about filming the show, even if it was just a courtesy. When the first season started filming, we weren't shy about being in front of the camera in various stages of undress. We knew everything would have to be blurred out in order to air on television, and the cameraman shot us from creative angles to avoid landing any nudity on the show. As intelligent as he is calculating, Hep saw the series as an opportunity to capitalize on the new genre of television that was sprouting up and once again reinvent the brand while bringing a fresh audience to Playboy. And the needs of the brand always trumped those of the girlfriends. It was understood that if we chose to continue living at the mansion, we had to agree to be featured on the series. Would Hef feel the need to bring in more girlfriends for ratings? Moving forward, I would take to caking on makeup like a beauty pageant contestant and grinning ear to ear for every interview. Let's be honest, our dramatic age difference wasn't an uncommon question, but Jerica asked it in a way that made me feel like there were ulterior motives at play, like she was using some sneaky backdoor approach to get me to say something I didn't intend to. No sense beating around the bush. Oh my bad. To get me to say something I didn't intend to. In hindsight offers, maybe that was guilty. No, I'm just joking. Hindsight offers many luxuries. But in that moment, my view was still clouded by the fantasy that Hef was my boyfriend. The idea that one of his girlfriends is still growing up feels wrong. I explained more politely than before, aware of all the eyes currently on me. In 5 years, I would love for it to be just me and Hef, I said, smiling and trailing off into my standard response. Jerica's needling pushed some button to cause all this subconscious crap to surface. But luckily, I was still tucked safely into my corner of denial and quickly repressed the thoughts. People were always fascinated by the curfew. Like a robot, I happily went back to my health and Playboy friendly responses, the hard questions dodged for the day. The ideas that were being thrown around didn't center on the girlfriends. There is no doubt in my mind, everyone on the other side of the cameras thought that Hugh Hefner's three girlfriends would be the most demanding, unreasonable bitches of all time, making the staff's life hell at any given moment. I started a bit, taken out of my hypnosis by an out of the ordinary question. I made myself beautiful. One of the head producers would later say to me that this answer led him to believe that they had something with the girls, and maybe there was more of a story here than just how do butlers deal with demanding spoiled bitches while naked playmates are running around them all the time. The answer I gave was the one honest, spontaneous thing I had said all day, and it alluded to so many things. One, that I had been conditioned to believe that I was not beautiful. It was finally Lisa Berger, then president of programming at E, who suggested she would like to see what life in the mansion was like through the eyes of the girls, a Dorothy and Oz kind of take on the Playboy world. I was torn on whether or not to be excited about this project. I had come to LA wanting to be an actress. Despite my hunger to be in the spotlight professionally, I have always been a very private person. Even the small amount of notoriety I had already gained from being one of Hep's girlfriends made me extremely uncomfortable. Being part of a bimbo harem was not what I wanted to be famous for. On the other hand, the drama demanded by a reality show could turn the mansion back into the snake pit it used to be during the Mean Girls days, on and off camera. We were each given one simple line to say on camera. Surrounded by the show's cast, crew, and hundreds of extras, the scene had to be shot over and over and over again to the point of lunacy because Kendra couldn't get her one line right. The thought of having to be compared like that on a weekly basis gave me crazy anxiety. Though it is completely obvious to me now why I felt so dark, believe it or not, back then I was stumped. He refused to let me see a therapist because, as he put it, a therapist would just tell me to leave the mansion. It made me feel a little better for the time being and helped buoy me through the mansion for a few more years. The first episode of The Girls Next Door introduced the E audience to Hugh Hefner's three blonde girlfriends. While caring about someone is certainly a positive thing, I was troubled by the limitations of our characters. Somehow I had found an old Polaroid from the year 2000 buried deep in the pile. Health always treated me like such a scrub, like I was barely lucky enough to be in residence at the mansion. I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but in order to get the most of their time and money, producers typically map out episodes in advance based on schedules and then determine what can make for potential plot lines. I screamed so loudly I was certain the dog I was holding had gone deaf, and Bridget looked at me, looked as though she was going to burst into tears. This man, who had conditioned us to believe we were good enough for his bed, but not his magazine, just made our dreams come true. We had been at the mansion for years and had been browbeaten to believe we just weren't Playboy material. Bridget revealed through a stream of tears that she had auditioned to be a centerfold years earlier, but didn't make the cut. Hep had basically told her it was never going to happen. Earlier in that same episode, you heard me rattle off the same canned answer that I'd given for years about whether I wanted to be in Playboy. People assumed that I came here wanting to be a playmate and that's my goal, I said. He also knew the importance of good timing. By allowing us to appear in the magazine, Health would be cashing in the biggest insurance policy he had to keep us safely behind the mansion bars. But Health knew something we hadn't yet figured out. The show was positioned to be a runaway hit for the network, so he no longer needed the magazine as a guarantee. Health allowed us to choose between the two staff photographers for our pictorial, Arnie Freytag and Stephen Waving. Arnie worked best with rookie models, those straight off the farm girls who needed help posing every inch of their body. We were told to arrive to the mansion's bathhouse in the morning for hair and makeup, wear nothing but a robe and slippers, tight clothes and shoes would leave lines on the body, and we couldn't have that. I couldn't believe I was finally getting the full Playboy beauty treatment. For years, I had watched girls transform into these glamorous creatures with the help of the expert editorial beauty team. Even with my weekly allowance, I would have never been able to afford the beauty team Playboy magazine used. By the time I arrived on the scene, these were the kinds of lavish expenses that have had cut back on. It comprised some of the best artists in the industry, and they didn't come cheap. From the neck down, we were expected to be in top physical shape. It was mostly intended to warm us up before diving into the deep end, naked, but they ended up coming out great, and one of the shots were published. Finally, it was time to begin shooting our nudes. By that point, we'd each become considerably more relaxed in front of the camera. It was easily the best time the three of us had had together in what felt like months. When Health came out to check on the photos, he was so happy with the results that he added a last minute setup for the three of us in the bathhouse shower. My shoot was in Health's bedroom and was intended to be reminiscent of old Hollywood. The beauty team styled me like a 40s movie star, minus the red lipstick, and the photographer draped me over an elegant wood staircase wearing nothing but a pair of vintage peach marble bedroom mules. I asked one of the crew members, totally bewildered. I suppose Hef was more inclined to waste thousands of magazine dollars rebuilding his bedroom rather than being inconvenienced for a few hours. Playboy photo editor Marilyn Grabowski used the page from a foreign issue of Playboy as inspiration for our first setup. Three identical brunettes piled on top of each other in bed. Throughout the sequence, we couldn't keep a straight face. Posing for such a risque shot felt incredibly awkward, but it turned out that the laughter worked in our favor because the photos ended up looking quite erotic. Because we were nude and flat on our backs, our breasts had to be taped up to reduce the amount of cleavage needed for the cover. I wish I could come here every day, I whispered to Bridget as we lay on the slanted bed. During our lunch break, Stephanie Morris, the junior photo editor at that time, called us down to her office to fill out paperwork. Hef hadn't spoken to us about how much we were to be paid for our pictorial, but we were about to find out. Hef's former girlfriends, the Bentley twins, each received $100,000 for their cover, and pictorial years earlier. I knew I wanted to put some in savings for the investment property I dreamed of buying, and maybe I could use a bit to buy that Louis Vuitton travel case that I've been lusting over for years. Bridget had tested to be a playmate years earlier, so she knew what playmates were paid, and that was the growing popularity. And that, with the growing popularity of the show, we deserved much more than what Playboy was offering. But worse than our bottom end of the scale paid for the pictorial was the fact that, despite being the stars of the show, having the producers decided that Bridget, Kendra, and I wouldn't receive a single dime for the first order of the girls next door. While the filming on the first batch of G&D episodes was wrapping, Kendra had finally gotten the courage to bring the issue up during a meeting the three of us had with the show's highest-ranking producers. It really was a valid question, and she broached the topic in a delicate way. That would become the unofficial motto of G&D for seasons to come. In actuality, Bridget and I spotted the book in Mary's office one afternoon and quickly flipped through it to get a first look at our feature. Even back then, most people assumed that the women of Playboy were mainly a product of Photoshop, but that wasn't the case with most of the pictorials. Kendra would eventually request to have her labia photoshopped out of one of the pictures where her legs were in the air, but that was about it. So much for not having that out there. But it wasn't what we looked like that bothered us. It was which photos were selected. The large opening shot just so happened to be the picture of Bridget, Kendra, and me in our sexy cocktail attire with Hef plastered right between us. Remember those brief few clicks he casually wandered into? Maybe it's just me, but I'm not so sure men picking up the magazine will be all that turned on by a septuagenarian man front and center. The steamiest photo in the feature was a full-page photo of Kendra and me in the bathhouse shower. On camera, she confided to her sister about how upset it made her to be excluded from the day's final setup and decided to speak with Health about it. The crew preferred to film everything as it was happening, but they eventually agreed that Bridget could speak to Health off camera. In the beginning, I have to admit that I didn't have a ton of faith in the process. I believed that everyone was pigeonholing us into their preconceived ideas of who we were, and that audiences would see right through the facade, or at the very least, quickly become bored. On camera, Kendra was spontaneous, carefree, and brimming with those bubbly mishaps ripe for television. And let's just say, when it came to Kendra, none of those dumb blonde moments ever had to be scripted. On top of being the house cheerleader and the emotional anchor to our trio, Bridget was also the perfect attraction for more conservative viewers. People came to the show for an inside look at Hugh Hefner's magical world, but they stayed because of Kendra, Bridget, and me. I honestly believe the show wouldn't have worked as well with any other cast of characters that had lived in the mansion. As usual, we remained locked behind the mansion gates, bound to our dictator's rules. We weren't well known enough yet to be recognized while simply running errands, usually in juicy sweats and without makeup, especially without one another or hats. In 2005, MySpace was still the most important social media site available and was used primarily on personal computers. Who had a smartphone back then? These were the calm days before Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter became national obsessions. Even though Kendra and Bridget received equally as brutal commentary from these miserable trolls hiding behind their computers, there is something very lonely about being a battering ram for a group of hateful people. While promoting the show in New York, we were invited to be guests on the ABC daytime talk show, The View. It was uncomfortable and awkward, but we were new to the game and wanted to be amenable. During the filming of season one, a playmate named Carol Monaco had come to live across the street from the mansion at the Bunny House. As production crews rolled back in to shoot season two, I reluctantly decided I would do my best to accept my lot in life and aspire to one day be the only girlfriend at the mansion. It was the first time Hal's girlfriends could say, "We don't sleep with him," and it would actually be true. Knowing what a fan I was of the bunny costume and of Roberto Cavalli, who had designed the new bunny ensembles for the club, Playboy PR tapped me to model one of the new prototypes in a fashion show, along with several playmates. Taking the notion of the girl next door literally, the cover showed the three of us peeking through a white window with frilly drapes, and it became the first time the magazine photographed a corresponding back cover, which naturally was a view of our butts, as we were peeking out the window. And while this time we were finally able to star in individually themed shoots, it was mandated that the other two girls appear in the background of each. We still felt frustrated that Hef seemed to think we were only worthwhile as a threesome. But it turned out that casting us as a team wasn't making us jealous and turning us against each other. Instead, it was turning us into a team in real life. Shoot, we had a blast modeling together. Being in the magazine was a dream come true for all of us. So being able to do it again was icing on the cake. But just like the first time around, Bridgette's emotions started to get the better of her. She began to feel like the photo editor, Marilyn, was singling her out and nitpicking every detail. I couldn't have imagined that happening a year earlier when things had been more strained between the three of us. Once he finds a comfortable one, he's bound to stick with it for at least the next few decades. It was on these trips that Bridget and I finally found something we had in common with Kendra. We all love sightseeing. I think at one point we each believed that moving to the mansion would give us the opportunity to see the world. But the truth is, we rarely left our neighborhood. Now that Half knew the world was watching, he had to believe he was. Opportunity of a lifetime to be able to travel around the world in style. So we didn't waste a single minute. I think a lot of people will look at being together for 5 years as a turning point. I said to the interview camera, an empty smile on my lips. When we all gathered around the table for our anniversary dinner because it could never be just the two of us, I presented him with this sort of sap-filled greeting card he adored. I tried to play off my outburst as having been touched by the romantic moment, and I think most people bought it. But in reality, I was crying because of what a farce this whole thing was and how stretched thin my nerves were at that moment. As the show continued to grow in popularity, we became more and more valuable to both the network and the brand. We even got to have a tiny bit more say in what kinds of things were filmed. People are going to love it. I have been angling for a Christmas episode since season one, but the producers had always half grumbled under his breath, something about how E would never have been able to afford Ryan if G&D hadn't been so successful, before shuffling off towards a nearby table, expecting me to follow. Even when we shot entire episodes off the mansion grounds, we were obligated to call home on camera so the show could cut back to what Hef was doing back at the mansion. By the time we began filming on season three, my attitude changed when it came to our little reality program. I was finally fully embracing it, but by the time the network ordered a third season, even I had to admit that we had a hit on our hands. And what is the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversation? Lewis Carroll, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And then there's a photo of Bridget and Kendra right behind the scenes of our first Playboy shoot with photographer Arnie Freytag. And a photo from left to right, Bridget, playmate friend Liz Stewart, me and Kendra at a signing, a blow up of our first cover hanging in the background. Another photo, behind the scenes of our second cover shoot for Playboy. Photo, the peep show, marquee, and no, photo, I couldn't believe that was me up there. Photo, filming my birthday with Jade, Nicole, Laura, Josh, Bridget, and Angel. Also, I was starting to realize that being on a reality show brings a little magic with it. I was beginning to sense that I might be able to get something bigger out of this, even if that something was confined to the world of Playboy. That season, we were finally able to film in December and capture my birthday. Kendra's and Bridget's birthdays had both been covered twice over the previous 2 seasons. Birthday episodes were important to each of us because it was another opportunity to feel special and to be portrayed as individuals. I think being able to feel like our own person from time to time made us all feel a little less insecure, which allowed us to come together as friends more and more. The show's producers found Sunset Ranch in the Hollywood Hills, offering horseback rides over the hills into Burbank and back to Hollywood. I would later learn that the area was developed as a community called Hollywoodland. That's where the famous Hollywood sign comes from. And each house was built to look as if it came straight out of a fairy tale. I didn't know it then, but I would find myself returning to the neighborhood quite regularly 5 years later. Despite dating the boss, I didn't find the internship that's easy for me to secure. Even though reality shows capture reality, there still needs to be a storyline to follow. So we were gathered around the mansion's dining room table, pencils and day planners in hand, listing off our plans and goals for the next few months. For example, me buying an exotic bird as a gift for half, Kendra consulting a pet psychic, and Bridget taking her dog to get an agent were intercut to create a pet themed episode. At the time, we had already shot 2 pictorials for the magazine, and I absolutely loved being at the studio. Marilyn was responsible for coming up with ideas and themes for shoots, doing the art direction, and choosing the best photos to send to Playboy's Chicago offices for layout design. No reason was ever relayed back to me, just that it didn't get approved. I complained to Bridget one day while I was lounging in her room. I know, she blurted out. We were to be depicted as a happy family, blissfully sharing our boyfriend at all times. He wanted to be portrayed as the best boyfriend ever, which meant he acted quite different on camera than off. In order to secure the internship, I was charged with finding a potential playmate candidate suitable for the magazine and bringing the photos to her for review. When I finally found a photo of her to show Hef, he approved her as a candidate. In order to secure the internship, I was charged with finding a potential playmate candidate suitable for the magazine and bringing the photos to Hef for review. Tamara Scott will soon become 2007's Miss August, and her Playmate shoot will mark my first official gig as a Playboy photo intern. Between my 9 to 5 at the studio and all the editing homework I was bringing back to the mansion with me, I ended up spending most of my time on the job, and I wouldn't have had it. But the only time I ever may have appeared involved in a shoot when I wasn't was when a production team asked me to pop by the Playboy shoot Kim Kardashian was filming for Keeping Up with the Kardashians. As girlfriends, the three of us were to be seen and not heard. As Kendra's star began to rise, she became more confident, independent, and vocal. Bridget and I had been through so much by the time Kendra had arrived on the scene that we were already preconditioned to be afraid to ask for anything. She was no longer new and novel enough to be completely safe from House's belittling ways. Kendra had dressed up as Mae West for one of our calendar photos, an obvious bid to win House's affections by emulating an old Hollywood star. You know, Kendra, he said out of the blue, it looks like you are putting on some weight. Kendra and I might have had our differences, but the show had turned out to be a really positive thing for our relationship. And in that moment, my heart broke for her. I stared out the window, wishing I was any place but the back of that limo. The show gave us all a common ground, and Kendra was now no stranger to the insults, tantrums, and guilt trips, complete with fake tears, that Bridget and I had been dealing with for a number of years. And so we are at chapter 10, and we're going to stop there and go to the second part of this regarding kidnapping with Mary Blige. But, you know, it's like when you're litigious and you can't just stop being, stop, when it comes to love, just because it's like anything. Like you're going through whatever, you can't just find yourself in a depressed, psychologically debilitating situation. There's still love, there's still togetherness, there's still finding that other part of you that's, probably fighting through or, what you're going through. So we have Mary Blige. And I have to do something from What's the 411. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna do this one just because I think it's funny. I'm just gonna do puffs. When I listened to it, it reminded me. I happened to pick this album up from the library, and it reminded me um of What's Love Got to Do with It? That scene in the nightclub when Tina first like get to do something for Ike. And so I started thinking this would be so cute. Let's see. Let me see how it comes off. Oh man. Well, anyway, it's not playing, so I'm just gonna have to do it off the cuff. Well, first, let me see if anything else is playing. Maybe it's not just that song. Oh, and I just caught that she just got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So I was like, did you get the memo? Did anyone leave a message? Because in Despicable Me, Evil Brat, he like attempts to demolish the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which is kind of comical. I guess he's supposed to be like the terrorist of it, the antagonist. I mean, the antagonist of it. Let's see, that's the same language. Okay. As I mentioned, things are about timing. And maybe it's not good timing to do Mary J. Blige. So we're gonna try again and see what happens. But I was listening to it. It's like, yo, Mary, it's Puff. Pick up the phone. Hey, yo, it's Puff. Hey, man, yo, Mary, you got studio tonight, 8 o'clock. And like in what's love got to do with it? Like, oh, it wasn't Tina. It was one of the other girls that wanted to grab the mic. So you're like, oh my God, I'm just joking. Oh, because what reminded me, another scene that I absolutely adore is Strawberry Shortcake's Berry Bitty City. And the star in Strawberry Shortcake's Berry Bitty City is Cherry Jam. So Cherry Jam has her own little trailer or her own little tour bus or whatever. And so the other girls, they did their hair up and they had like glasses. They did their hair like really big and they had like glasses on and, like little streamers, little party poppers, and they're going to the trailer. They're like, oh my gosh, Cherry Jam. So it just kind of felt like that. Like, oh my gosh, Paul, Paul is calling me. Oh my gosh, 8 o'clock. Oh my gosh, Paul, calling me. I'm going to be there. 8 o'clock. It's the cutest thing. But anyway. Bye for another day. I just thought it'd be have a different effect, actually playing his message than just going off the cuff. But let's see if this one plays. Sometimes the browser can be temperamental. So it's not playing today, unfortunately. So I'm just gonna do leave a message. And the spirit, what's love got to do with it? With that girl that played in the club with regards to Ike, and the girls of Strawberry Shortcakes, Bad Bitty City, outside Cherry Jam's tour bus. You better be home. Yo, what's up? Oh, that's the machine. My bad. I guess I'll be here. You better be home. Yo, what's up? This is let's see. This is the Late Late Show with BT. Not available. Leave a message. Peace. Yo, it's Pop. Pick up the phone. Like I don't. That doesn't work, right? Okay. Let's see. How can I do this? Okay, I do host. Okay. You better be there. Yo, what's up? This is the host of Late Late Show with BT. Not available. Leave a message. Peace. Yo, it's Puff. Pick up the phone. It's Puff. Hey, what about studio tonight? 8 o'clock. You gotta do this. What about this video shoot? Get back to me. Pick up. Get back to me. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Pop. Calling me studio tonight. Tonight? 8 o'clock? Oh my gosh. I can't believe the host of this little show, got the Late Late Show with BT, got a call from Pop. Oh my gosh. Tonight? Anyhow, I'm gonna get back to Holly Madison down the rabbit hole. I so miss Strawberry Shortcakes, Bear Bitty City. I haven't been able to see it. It was coming on one channel, the Hub, and then the Hub changed and turned into something else. Oh my gosh, this show is so cute. Because as you know, we used to do Strawberry Shortcakes. I forgot what this segment was called. Did we do Orange Blossoms? I don't know. But they had since broke up because of Huckleberry Pie. So now Huckleberry Pie is with Orange Blossom. And Strawberry Shortcake had to find a new love. So we're back with Holly Madison down the rabbit hole. The show's ratings were high and growing, so it dawned on Playboy to begin merchandising it and the girlfriends to increase profits and capitalize on its popularity before it was too late. Charm bracelets are really popular, so how about one with cute charms like a tiny dog, a champagne bottle, a jet? Our show was packaged in such a way that, believe it or not, many adults are watching it with their kids. The Playboy Club inside the Palms Casino Resort opened in October 2006, and shortly after, Playboy Licensing had the brilliant idea, no sarcasm, it actually was pretty good, to create Girls Next Door slot machines. We were made aware of the project and expected to be thrilled at the honor alone. No one mentioned any sort of compensation for use of our likeness or any percentage on the back end. Have had worked closely with this company in the past and had made friends with the owner, so I suppose he didn't feel too threatened by us branching out in this way. Have kept us aggressively sheltered, and any press we were allowed to do was pre-approved by Playboy Public Relations and only done if it promoted the brand, the show, or how specifically. For the most part, we chose our battles and did as Have requested when it came to our careers, but the slot machine idea struck a chord. There she was, a sultry Sarah Underwood lying across the cover in a sleek, sophisticated black monokini with a tiny gold Playboy logo beneath the belly button. I whispered under my breath. That was my design. It definitely made me question my loyalty to the brand, though. As G&D went into its fourth season, I finally had the opportunity to take Bridget and Kendra to my hometown. I love taking the girls to Craig, the tiny town I grew up in, and to Ketchikan, the nearest city, where my family and I used to go when we needed to buy something that Craig couldn't offer. There were only a handful of stores in Craig. The episode turned out to be my favorite of the entire series. There was a brunette named Melanie from San Diego, raven haired Valerie Mason from Louisiana, platinum blonde Kayla Collins from Pennsylvania, and a quirky 18-year-old from Las Vegas named Angel Perino. I was surprised when my sister said yes to the idea of the girls next door covering her wedding. But since she had planned a very small destination wedding in Jamaica, it turned out that she thought it'd be a great way to share the celebration with all of her friends that couldn't be there. Bridget, Kendra, and I couldn't have had a better time. Just before filming was set to begin on season 5, there was a mad rush to get Bridget, Kendra, and me on the contract. Letting us negotiate directly with the network was never going to be an option, probably because it meant he would have had to relinquish too much control over his girlfriends. After all, what if he offered us something greater than being one of Hugh Hefner's blonde bimbos? What I do recall is getting really worked up and marching down to the master bedroom to tell her I had no intention of signing. I think it's in bad taste to sign a contract to be your girlfriend, I've maintained. Quietly, I did my best to consider my options. I didn't want to be coerced into doing anything else for the man. Because the show is about Hef's girlfriends, I feel like I'm signing a contract to be in a relationship outlined. If I want to move forward with the show for a fifth season, I had to bind myself to Hef's production company. I felt silent for a few moments before asking, do they have to be signed today? They need them back today. I know that in Mary's heart, she sincerely thought that Hal was a good man, just as I believed at the time. But a nagging voice in the back of my head kept warning me not to trust this situation. I scribbled my name on the contract that Mary nonchalantly shoved under my nose and handed it back to her. I can't say this with certainty since I never witnessed pen to paper, but the gossip around the mansion was that someone on Hal's staff must have had to forge Kendra's contract in order to meet the network's deadline. You should have been the sporty one, Kendra teasingly pouted at Anna the first time we met her as she prepared to shoot a scene in the mansion's backyard. Anna was done with curly blonde hair, and as you know, Anna is part of it's still it's kind of like I mentioned before when they get into this industry and they get assigned to something, everything builds on something until that something that they were assigned to first is clear. If it's a case, conflict, or whatever the problem is, like Anna had the house bunny, and now she's in mom, and it's connected to the same issue, the same problem, the same kidnapping. So Anna was done up with curly blonde hair, frilly pink outfit. Her character had a grumpy pet cat similar to Bridgette's cat Gizmo. The movie would hit the number 2 spot at the box office on its opening weekend. No one was talking about adding a new girlfriend or anything, but I was asked to recruit some girls that I thought would be good for the show to stay at the Bunny House for a month or so while we filmed. I chose Laura Croft, a wild and crazy, and that's Laura, Laura, not Lara Croft, that we had to use counterterrorism with Angelina Love and J. Jolie for. So, or Skyler. So, this is Laura Croft, a wild and crazy playmate from Florida. Kayla Collins, the bouncy blonde from the Go West Young Girl episode, and Angel Carino, also from the Go West episode, the funny girl with the high-pitched voice from Las Vegas. One evening, Hef popped around the corner into my vanity area and announced that he was kicking Kayla out of the bunny house. She thinks Kayla is starting trouble between her and some of the other playmates. Other playmates have reiterated, as if that made him any more clear than before. Hef agreed to let her stay, but threatened to have her leave if she made another misstep. For the second half of season 5, the girls in the bunny house left and the three amigos gravitated back together. We invited all of our moms and our house mother, Mary O'Connor, out for a group spa day. visited Barbie Benton's outrageous home in Aspen, and went on a road trip for Bridget's sister Anastasia's birthday. Have truly loved to believe that the highlight of any of his exes' lives was the time they spent with him. He also loved to remind viewers of all the beautiful women he dated. Fans loved watching our shoots on the series, which is most likely why we ended up getting four covers. And since three separate shoots would mean more footage for the show, production kindly coughed at the budget, $10,000 per shoot. I loved being a part of these little firsts. Since I wanted my third of the pictorial to be done my way, I decided to cover the cost of the photo shoot out of my own pocket and provided a different scenario for G&D to film. In order to provide content for the TV show, I decided to do something a little experimental and out of the box for a Playboy shoot. Back then, there wasn't much room to move when it came to Playboy photo shoots. Inspired by that day, Bear and I did my shoot in the mansion pool, setting up several surreal underwater scenes, a tea party, a chained escape artist, a mermaid, etc. Half never missed a chance to paint me as ugly. Will later publicly announce that my underwater photos were never published because they weren't flattering, when in fact they were never meant for the magazine in the first place. And maybe it's probably because I just don't know how to swim. So I could not do an underwater scene at this time. Hopefully, I'll learn how to swim. I tried, so I progressed. Like I didn't know how to swim, so I started taking lessons. And I didn't complete my lesson package, but I did learn how to float, like a dead bug, but not. While the television show had bolstered Hal's mood for quite some time, he was eventually brought back down to earth by the sad financial state of Playboy Enterprises. I remember seeing a TV news magazine story on the subject even before I moved into the mansion, but what I didn't know was that things had gone from bad to worse. Because I was the main girlfriend and meekest one in the bunch, Hef always felt safest picking on me. Sure, he lashed out at the other girls from time to time, but he was more cautious about it with them. In years past, when Hef and I had problems, I always blamed the other girlfriends for the drama. Without any mean girls, scapegoats left, I would slowly begin to realize that Hef being mean was just Hef being mean. Bridget, Kendra, and I would gather around the dining room table with Hef and whatever girls were visiting the mansion that week and play games. I loved it the first few times we played, but the game was so mind-numbingly easy. I quickly became bored. After 7 years living under Hal's strict rules, I thought I could have earned enough respect to be allowed to bend the rules every now and then. A charming Southern girl, Tiffany was one of the most beautiful women ever to grace the pages of Playboy and truly a joy to be around. I've never been to Cabo before, I asked Nancy Bridget, glowing with anticipation. I felt like Cinderella finally getting to go to the ball. It's like I told you. We can't get a flight back late enough to be able to attend the ceremony and reception. You're not going to any parties, he said firmly before shuffling his feet across the hardwood back into the bedroom. Without uttering a word to Bridget, who I was certain overheard the whole ordeal, I gently put down the receiver as tears welled up in my eyes. Truth be told, I had never been happy at the mansion, but I had always been able to put on a facade, leading others to believe that I was. I had convinced myself that the multiple girlfriends were the problem because I just couldn't admit to myself that I had made a terrible choice moving into the mansion in the first place. There was also the part of me that was grateful for the things Health had afforded me, food and shelter when I needed it, the allowance put towards paying off the debts I had from college, and the opportunities to be on a television show. Though there was plenty to complain about in the way I was treated, I was grateful for the good things and couldn't stand to be just like so many of the girls who had come before me, taking and running with no shame. I then confessed something to Bridget that had been, up to that point, been top secret, known only to me, Hef, Mary, and a few doctors. I had made it clear to him several times that I wasn't going to be happy settling down to the mansion without a family, and this was his way of trying to save the relationship, though I'm sure he was quite relieved to dodge having another child. This was concrete proof slapping me in the face that there was no future for me at the mansion. It was either sit there and rot or take the plunge and face the world. Oh, my bad. Trying to save the relationship, though I'm sure he was quite relieved to dodge having another child. I couldn't even admit wanting to leave to Bridget. I just told her how heartbroken I was over the outcome of the test and that I didn't know what to do with my life. As becoming Health's one and only came closer and closer to becoming a reality, the truth was clear to me. I had always wanted to find a soulmate who was creative, ambitious, and adventurous, and yes, Hef might have been the epitome of all three of those things at some point in his life, but that point was long gone, probably before I was even born. In the spring of 2008, Playboy searched for the 55th anniversary Playmate to be featured in the January 2009 issue. The black-haired beauty with ice blue eyes was the clear frontrunner, but G&D producers and I wanted to create a two-episode America's Next Top Model-esque storyline following five candidates as they competed for the title. In addition to Dasha, I chose four girls halfway considered for the coveted spot. Hope Dorzit, a brunette standout from the Dallas casting call. Jessica Burciaga, a petite Jennifer Lopez lookalike whom I found on MySpace. Crystal McCahill, a curvy Chicago girl whose mother had been a playmate in the 60s, a connection Hef love. And Carissa and Christina Shannon, blonde twins that I thought would make perfect TV drama. I couldn't tell if they were serious or not, but either way, they seemed like they might be the right kind of people to stir the pot. The candidates were brought to Los Angeles that summer for their test shoots and invited to stay at the Bunny House. The shoots were going along right on schedule until I received word from Dasha that Jessica had left the Bunny House the night before her scheduled centerfold shoot at the studio. It turned out that the runaway bunny went hopping back to Orange County. According to some of the crew and other girls staying at the house, Jessica had been tormented for days by the twins, along with Playboy's resident wild child, Laura Croft. After sorting out that potential disaster, I gave myself a well deserved pat on the back. She was having trouble with the other girls. So she left. I calmly explained to him, hoping he would recognize the volume of my voice and aim to match it. But it's such a minor thing. I didn't even think you would want to be bothered with it, I said truthfully. I was completely caught off guard and could feel the tears start to burn my eyes. I took a deep breath and held them back with every ounce of dignity I had left. I couldn't bear to make eye contact with anyone. I felt so humiliated. After what felt like 30 long seconds of him glaring at me with his jaw clenched so hard, I thought he might crack his teeth. He stomped his foot like a child and scuffled back into the bedroom. I eventually decided on one of Hef's friends, since he knew Hef well and certainly understood the degree to which I was down to the shove. I cut myself. Bridget had come in earlier and placed a box of sprinkles cupcakes on the table. I cut myself a piece of one and passed the rest across the table. He then went on to remind me that Bridget and Kendra were leaving soon, and that Girls Next Door would then be all about half me and my work and the girls that came to the studio. It seemed like all my dreams were coming true. But I had to ask myself, were those still my dreams? I was finally seeing Hal's true colors and accepting that perhaps he had been that way all along. They'd always been so supportive of me because they saw that I treated Hal well. I loved my job and couldn't bear the thought of losing it. As I was the only part of the trio who was supposed to be staying at the mansion, I just plopped myself on Bridget's bed and waited for the others to talk. I don't want to be here without Bridget and Kendra. After more than 4 years together at the mansion, our little blonde army was disbanding. Like the freckle-faced producer had suggested years before, Kendra really did grow up inside the mansion, but it seemed to be due largely in part to a man she had met outside the mansion. Gone was the insecure little girl who labeled Bridget and me the enemies and spent her days desperately jockeying for attention. When I first met her, all she wanted was to be a playmate, and she ended up achieving so much more. I didn't know what it was, but something had to feel more genuine and fulfilling than simply being the First Lady's Stepford wife of the Playboy Mansion. After a full day on set, I was exhausted. but still exhilarated at the idea of spending some time by myself in Las Vegas without the watchful mansion eye hovering over me. I desperately needed to get out that night and experience life as a normal 20 something before deciding if I was going to go back to hell and settle down, break it off for good. I was like a bachelorette looking for her last hurrah or an Amish kid going out for a rum springer. The only problem was going out for a rum springer. Jessica and the photo staff were wiped out from the day's shoot and all went to bed early. Because I was one of Hugh Hefner's girlfriends, guys didn't usually have the gal to hit on me that blatantly, so I found his fumbled attempt strangely endearing, like a teenage boy tripping over his own feet. Not long after our initial meeting, we were invited to be guests on yet another Chris Angel television series, Mind Freak. Despite his mysterious on camera persona, behind the scenes he was an easygoing jokester. I was charmed by the things that littered his suite: video games, a foosball table, and an intricate model train set. I wasn't so charmed by the cheap plastic dry erase board stuck to the back of his front door with the words Britney was here. Spears sprawled across the center in a drunken, out of order scrawl. It was all sort of obnoxious. But truth? Producer sat me next to a petite, sexy brunette with sparkly, high gloss lips. Since we already had secured the bachelorette suite at the Palms, a 2,300 square foot pink paradise since rebranded as the Hot Pink Suite for Paula Jessica's shoe, I decided I should crash there for the night. Chris and I were just friends, but the last thing I needed was a picture popping up online of the two of us having a romantic dinner together, or however the press might spin it. Again, his thinly veiled attempts at baiting me couldn't have been more transparent, but I was slowly becoming more and more charmed by him. Unlike the ultra feminine, docile fembot I was required to be as one of Hef's girlfriends, with Chris, I felt like I could be one of the guys. I had one night away from the mansion. I didn't want to squander it sitting up in the hotel room, but we had to be careful. I bounded into the bedroom to snatch my bag and check my makeup. Looking at myself in the reflection, I couldn't help but notice the big smile involuntarily plastered on my face. Situated inside the Luxor, the boutique nightclub did feel surprisingly private, and I allowed myself to relax. Chris asked if I would take a picture with the Cat House girls when a posse of uniformed women arrived at our table. Cat House was a restaurant as well as a nightclub, so I didn't think the photo could be that incriminating should it get out. You know, Chris began, going into a bubbling speech about how he was looking for someone to have fun with, but to have a serious relationship with. He was quick to add after he noticed the look on my face. I took his nervousness as a compliment. He seemed to be smitten with me. To be honest, I found it a little tacky. Here was this adventurous guy so full of life who was looking for someone to be young and wild with. He blurted out that he'd marry me right now when I didn't take the bait. To be fair, I knew that Chris was used to women shamelessly throwing themselves at him, so I figured he didn't quite appreciate that I was simply interested in the novelty of hanging out with a guy who was closer to my own age for a night. After a few glasses of wine, Chris gave me a tour of the Luxor Theater and then accompanied me back to the Palms and walked me back to my suite. He reached down and removed my earrings from each ear and set them by the bedside table. After walking across the room, he scrawled something on the back page of a room service menu, a note reading, I miss you, tearing out the sheet and sticking it next to my curling iron on the bathroom counter. Honestly, I had endured so many verbal lashings lately that I had no idea what could have possibly been the catalyst for this outburst. After getting permission to stay over the night before, I had called him again shortly before his 10 p.m. bedtime to wish him good night. But I called you right before you went to bed. He had slept with an army of different women during our time together, but I remained faithful. When his then fiance confessed to being unfaithful, he was devastated, but chose to marry her anyway. His second wife was rumored to have been unfaithful with the member of the mansion staff, and his third wife ran out of their first planned wedding to be with just one of the several men she had allegedly cheated on half with. It seemed he felt that if he could somehow stall and put off my leaving as long as possible, that I would just forget about wanting to leave and everything would go back to normal, save for the giant imaginary albatross he had to hang over my head. Are you sure? He finally asked, continuing to dangle the bait that E had ordered a sixth season of the show. I want to be able to actually hang out with my girlfriends and have fun like a normal person. After years of being conditioned to believe that I wasn't anything without Playboy attached to my name, I had actually started to believe it. It was ridiculous, considering that our disagreements up to this point had always been about things that should have been trivial to him. He didn't care if I stayed out of fear or out of pity as long as I stayed, but I wasn't going to budge. It came as a shock to most of the staff and show producers when I actually began the process of moving out of the master suite. It was oddly nostalgic to be moving back into the same room I moved into as a mansion newbie 7 years prior. Back then, I barely had a suitcase full of possessions. Now, I had substantially more to pack. I had a large storage closet full of clothing, mementos, and Christmas decorations in the mansion's basement, not to mention another one in the bunny house across the street. But that wasn't going to stop me. If I ever seemed to be in too good of spirits, he would do his best to smack me back down with snide comments or attempts at making me jealous by toting around the Shannon twins. I was beginning to realize that he preferred miserable and uninspired Holly, maybe because she was easier to control. For the time being, I was allowed to keep my job at Studio West. Still, while Health had begun the process of moving on, he hadn't lost hope that I would reconsider and move back into his master's suite. I have the rest of my stuff out of your room by tomorrow, I told him during once such encounter. When I went to grab my things from a shelf near the bed, I noticed one of Health's file folders sitting neatly in the middle of what was formerly my side of the bed. After death tax, his fortunes would be divvied up, starting with roughly 50% to his charitable foundation, and the bulk of the remainder divided evenly between his four children, Christy, David, Marston, and Cooper. For the better part of a decade, Hef used money as a means to control each girlfriend. The will stated that $3 million would be bestowed to Holly Madison at the time of his death, provided I still lived at the mansion. In the past, he had casually mentioned leaving me the bunny house, but I never took the bait. Disgusted by the gold digger image the public had of me, I tried to stay away from those kind of cliches as much as possible in my real life. Eventually, I would go on to find my own success, but I didn't know it back then. I put the folder back on the bed, just as I had found it, and never believed a word of it. I was only glad he didn't know that I had already started the process of removing my bunny tattoo as well. I know he was trying to sound romantic, as if he were pledging his undying love, but to me his comment sounded like a slight. I knew I deserved better, and there's no way his kind of love was the best the world had to offer. Through his vain attempts to intimidate, guilt, persuade, and eventually bribe me, the only thing he succeeded in doing was to convince me that I was making the best decision I had made in a very long time. It was a town brimming with opportunities. I hope to split my time between LA and Las Vegas in order to balance both my job at Studio West as well as my performing regularly at the MGM. After we discussed the upcoming Halloween party, I had to fill her in on how awkward things continue to be for me under Half's roof. Half came into my room the other day and tried reasoning with me, I told Bridget, sprawling myself out on her large round bed. A few weeks after that fateful night in Las Vegas, photos emerged revealing what appeared to be an intimate evening I spent with Chris Angel in Las Vegas. Though Bridget hadn't gotten involved with anyone yet, the media jumped on any side and part with another guy, hoping to round out the story of Kendra and Hank and me and Chris. One tabloid article in particular erroneously linked Bridget to a Las Vegas DJ. Since that same article went out of his way to mention that I was whisked away in Chris's black Rolls Royce Phantom, I couldn't help but think he was behind that article too. Yeah, he talked to me about it too, Bridget said. Like a zombie, I walked back to our bed and tucked myself in for the night. By then, I had weaned myself off the antidepressants I had been prescribed back when G&D first started filming. Between the success of the series and my new career, I had established some much needed self confidence and even found some happiness in my day to day routine. It forced me to realize that it wasn't just in my head, it had to be this lifestyle that was draining me. When Kendra walks into the house bedroom to reveal to him that she's decided to leave the mansion, viewers can clearly see framed photos of Carissa and Christina Shannon, who moved in as girlfriends in October 2008, scattered around the bed, having already replaced the photos of the three of us. In fact, it worked out for them quite nicely because in order to make Health look like the playboy he wanted to be portrayed as, it was important that him dating the Shannon twins be worked into G&D's fifth season before Bridget, Kendra, and I left. It worked nicely for them because when Hef came to see us scuba dive in the ocean, he brought a gavel of playmates with him, including the Shannon twins, who were shooting their playmate pictorial. But the twins were never predatory, never trying to steal anyone's boyfriend. They didn't move in until after the three of us had all broken it off with Hef, despite what he would like viewers to think. When it was finally my turn to film a goodbye scene, producers asked me to film a short segment with Hef where I was to tell him I'd be heading to Las Vegas to work on a pictorial. It was intended to be my last scene. By asking me to refer to the photo shoot in Vegas, I suppose they intended that to be where I met Chris. If I changed my mind and came back before the next season began filming, as they hoped I would, the scene could be played off as a temporary departure. In a moment of rebelliousness, I decided to wear a Chris Angel logo hoodie, a blatant flaw in the continuity of the series. The show was setting it up as if I were on my way to meet Chris for the first time, but in reality, that wasn't the case. The mansion's annual Halloween bash, the Saturday before the actual holiday, was my final hurrah before heading off to the Santa Monica condo I recently purchased, and eventually to Las Vegas and Chris. As a nod to my new Vegas obsession, I decided to go as Elvis and immediately buddied up with John Stamos, who was also dressed as Elvis, and his then girlfriend as Priscilla, naturally, and together we all braved the mansion's elaborate haunted house. Like Dorothy, I peeked behind the curtain and saw the frail old man pretending to be someone he wasn't. Just a few months earlier, the ailing financial state of Playboy Enterprises prompted them to begin selling tickets to the once exclusive soirees. The guest list ballooned to accommodate the increasing demand, and the vibe became crowded and hectic. By 2008, everyone had a smartphone, and the no camera rule that used to be what kept the parties a private, exclusive haven for celebrities was obliterated. Since by that time I had found a bit of TV fame, I spent much of the night taking photos with guests. I imagine the twins didn't want the responsibilities of being the main girlfriend, so they had their eyes open for a girl to fill that spot. As it was there that they spotted her, standing just a few feet away from the table, boiling over with nerves at the thought of meeting Gatsby himself. They had no idea that night that she would be their eventual undoing. While someone else was thrilled at the prospect of getting into the inner circle of the Playboy world, I couldn't have been happier to be getting out. Living inside those hulking walls hadn't been the path to fame and fortune that I had imagined, and it certainly hadn't been my path to love. I was grateful for all I had gained there, but still mourned all that was lost. And now that's it for now. I'm going to head out to this game, Virginia State versus Virginia Union. Again, I don't recall if it's the guys or the girls, but it's still Virginia State versus Virginia Union, and it's basketball. I'm going to check that out today. This has been Holly Madison, Down the Rabbit Hole, Curious Adventures and Cautionary Tales of a Former Playboy Bunny. Still talking about, resolving or finding resolving justice to this kidnapping situation, 9/11 situation. Weren't able to marry Jay Blige except for leave a message. Oh my gosh, he called me! Ah! So, Cherry Jam! Oh my gosh, it's you! So anyway, this has been a Late Late Show with BT. Bye.